Well, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky letting the world hear his outrage this morning at the United Nations Security Council. He urged actions after the massacre of at least 300 Ukrainian civilians near Bucha, near the capital of Kyiv, with this call for justice.
The Russian military and those who gave them orders must be brought to justice immediately for war crimes in Ukraine. Anyone who has given criminal orders and carried out them by killing our people will be brought before the tribunal.
For more now, I'm joined by Harold Hongju Koh, international law professor at Yale Law School, also one of the lawyers who argued on behalf of Ukraine in a suit filed against Russia at the International Court of Justice. Harold, so glad that you're back here with us because you are the one that started this conversation with us months ago, and now here we are talking about this latest call for a war crimes trial, and it's just getting louder. Zelensky now calling for one and accountability for all the atrocities to date after seeing what happened in Bucha. And you've seen the images, you've seen the reports. How closer could we be to an actual war crimes trial? What needs to happen now, Harold?
Well, I think these images are shocking. Bucha will now join Srebrenica and Sarajevo. As Aleppo as places where gross human rights violations have occurred. It was interesting that President Zelensky didn't call for any particular court to take action, and there are at least three options. First, Ukrainian courts and the Ukrainian Prosecutor General and the War Crimes Directorate are taking stock, and if they were able to bring someone before a Ukrainian court, that would be such a place, or in a neighboring country. So, for example, if Russian military were to flee and to be captured and they could link them to particular events in Bucha, they could be tried there. A second kind of tribunal is the International Criminal Court in The Hague, where some 40 countries have now referred the matter, and Ukraine has consented to have the trial. The prosecutor, Karim Khan, is building capacity in his prosecutorial team and is receiving evidence. And the United States is working now, I think, with them, with their new ambassador at large for war crimes, Beth Van Schaack. A third possibility is an entirely new tribunal that could take up the issue of Russian aggression. Obviously, it's easier to work with a wheel that's already been invented rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. But I think what really strikes me, Kira, is that when you move in close to these atrocities, you start to see certain patterns. The previous pattern that we were witnessing from afar was indiscriminate shelling of civilian areas and civilian targets. So even, hospitals or movie theaters or drama theaters that were marked with the word children were being bombed from afar. But as you move in closer, as we've done now with Bucha, you see shocking face-to-face brutality of the kind we haven't witnessed, where they're torturing people, summarily executing them, and in some cases dismembering them and throwing them into mass graves. This is brutality close up. And so what we're witnessing here is war crimes in service of naked aggression. And we have not seen that in such stark form in many, many decades.
Interesting. So just then, your last words there, stark form. Haven't seen acts like this of violence in such stark form in decades. And then you laid out the various possibilities, the various options that Zelensky could call for with regard to how to go forward. Just with your experience and what you know, what would you advise him?
I'd say to do exactly what he's done. Support the process of accountability, but back whichever court is able to achieve it most quickly. And to think about this not like Nuremberg was obviously a watershed historical moment, but this is a fragmented Nuremberg. Nobody is in custody at the moment. After World War II, all of the generals, many of the industrialists and others were all in captivity. Here, Putin is at large. He has 180,000 troops and nuclear weapons at his command. And before he gets tried, it's necessary that he go into a negotiation, make a ceasefire, stop killing people, and in that process preserve the possibility that he is then later pursued and tried in The Hague, which is exactly what happened to Slobodan Milosevic and Radovan Karadzic. Milosevic died in The Hague. Karadzic is in prison in Holland. But that process can take many years.
Yeah, many years that no one wants to sit around and wait for sure, especially when you see days like Bucha and those images. You know, Russian officials have brazenly called these atrocities staged, fake, just made up by Western actors. I mean, Harold, first of all, your reaction to that nonsense. And then secondly, clearly these pictures and firsthand accounts to prove what actually happened are crucial for accountability and for a trial.
Well, as Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, said yesterday, quite correctly, there are 4 sources for evidence. One is U.S. intelligence and from our allies, which has to be declassified, but can include even things like orders given on cell phones that have been intercepted, which can clearly point to someone having given a kill order. Second, international governmental and NGO reports. Third, the Ukrainian Prosecutor General and War Crimes Directorate's own information. And then finally, the media reports of all of the media coverage that's going on, both traditional media like yourselves, but also social media, and everybody with a cell phone acting like a journalist. Interestingly, I think that the Russian propaganda campaign is mainly directed inside the country to try to build support for what they're doing and telling a story to the Russian people where Putin's support remains high, but it's not working outside the country where everybody's seeing this happen. And Kira, we mentioned this before, the main target here is China. When you have a video shown of the kind that President Zelensky showed at the Security Council today, the Chinese representative sitting there, and that ambassador and the Chinese government in Beijing are trying to figure out how much do we want to be defending this kind of blatant war crime. And that goes into whether they veto resolutions that come before the Security Council, whether they offer military aid going forward, and how vocal they are in backing Putin going forward.
All right. Finally, Harold, you say the month of April is key for the UN Security Council. Why?
Yes. So in the first Security Council resolution, which was in February, voting either to abstain or no were China, India, and the United Arab Emirates. Last month, the month of March, the United Arab Emirates were president of the council. But on April 1st, the British government became head, and you saw Ambassador Woodward in the chair today expressing outrage and essentially running the session. So with somebody like that, the UK was actually one of the co-prosecutors at Nuremberg. You can expect a lot of sessions at the Security Council with a lot of testimony de facto of the kind that we saw today, and really directed against the Chinese. It will have 2 purposes: one, debunking falsehoods being delivered by Russia, the kind you mentioned, and secondly, telling the Chinese, stay out of this. Do not come in and assert yourself as a second permanent 5 member trying to justify this grotesque level of war crime.
Harold Hongju Koh, always appreciate you. We want to keep this conversation alive and just push forward and follow every detail along this this conflict with you. Appreciate you so much. Thank you, Harold.
Thank you, Kira.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.